The first snowfall of December settled quietly over the little town of Willowbrook. The narrow streets glowed beneath old gas lamps, while shopkeepers hurried to close their wooden shutters before nightfall. Among the small stores stood a modest bookshop with a faded green sign, Hart and Daughter Booksellers. Inside, Amelia Hart carefully dusted the shelves one last time before closing. The shop wasn't large. Its wooden floor creaked with every step. Old books filled every wall. A small fireplace crackled gently beside the reading corner. To Amelia, it was home. Ever since her father passed away 4 years earlier, she had managed the little shop alone. She never became wealthy, but she never complained. Books had always been enough. That evening, a violent winter wind rattled the windows. Amelia locked the front door and prepared a cup of tea. Just as she sat down, someone knocked. 3 slow knocks. Not hurried, not impatient. Almost ceremonial. She opened the door. No one stood outside. Only fresh snow covered the empty street. Confused, she looked down. A dark blue envelope rested on the doorstep. Its seal was made of black wax. Pressed into the wax was the image of a flying raven. She had never seen that crest before. Inside, she carefully broke the seal. The letter contained only a few lines. Miss Amelia Hart, if this letter has reached you, then the time has finally come. Your late father asked that you receive this only after his passing. You must come immediately to Ravenshire Castle. There is a truth waiting for you, and only you can uncover it. Bring the silver key hidden beneath your father's writing desk. Tell no one. Benjamin Ashcroft, chief butler of Ravensshire Castle. Amelia read the letter again, and again. Benjamin Ashcroft. The name meant nothing, but one sentence refused to leave her mind. Bring the silver key hidden beneath your father's writing desk. Her father had never mentioned any key. Curious, she walked into the small office behind the bookstore. Her father's old desk remained exactly where he had left it. She knelt beside it, ran her fingers beneath the lowest drawer. Nothing. She almost stood up. Then, her fingers touched something loose. A tiny wooden panel. She gently pushed it. Click. A hidden compartment opened. Inside lay a small silver key wrapped in faded blue cloth. Her heart stopped. Her father had truly hidden it, which meant he had expected this day to come. Wrapped around the key was another note, written in her father's familiar handwriting. My dearest Amelia, if you found this, I'm no longer here to explain everything. Forgive me. I kept many secrets because I promised someone I would, but promises cannot last forever. Go to Ravensshire Castle. Trust Benjamin. Trust no one else, not even those who wear a smile. Love, always. Father. Amelia slowly folded the letter. Questions flooded her mind. Who was Benjamin? What was Ravensshire Castle? What secret had her father protected all these years? The next morning, she locked the bookstore, hung a small sign on the door, closed until further notice. Mrs. Parker, the elderly woman from the bakery next door, frowned. Going somewhere? For a few days. Family? Amelia hesitated. I hope to find one. 2 days later, her carriage climbed through the snow-covered Ravensshire Mountains. The road grew steeper. Thick forests surrounded them. Then, the trees parted. Amelia's breath caught. High above the valley stood Ravensshire Castle. Its white stone towers rose proudly into gray winter sky. Frozen waterfalls surrounded the cliffs below. Hundreds of windows reflected the afternoon sun. It looked less like a home, and more like something from an old legend. The carriage finally stopped before enormous iron gates. A tall elderly man waited outside. Perfect black coat, silver hair, straight posture despite his age. The moment Amelia stepped down, he bowed. Miss Amelia Hart. She blinked. You know me? I've been waiting nearly 20 years. His voice trembled slightly. My name is Benjamin Ashcroft. For a brief moment, his eyes filled with tears. You look exactly like your mother. Before Amelia could ask another question, a loud crash echoed across the courtyard. A black horse galloped wildly through the snow. Its rider struggled to control it. The horse suddenly reared. Servants screamed. The rider was thrown violently onto the frozen ground. Amelia instinctively ran forward. Without thinking, she knelt beside the unconscious man. Tall, dark hair, sharp features, a small cut above his eyebrow. Blood stained the snow. Benjamin hurried over. "Your Grace." Amelia looked up. "He's the Duke." Benjamin nodded gravely. "Duke Adrian Ravenshire." Several servants carefully carried Adrian inside. As Amelia stood to follow, she noticed something strange. The moment her fingers accidentally touched Adrian's hand, he whispered one name, barely audible. "Amelia?" She froze. His eyes remained closed. He had never met her. So, how'd he know her name? That evening, Benjamin led Amelia through the castle's endless corridors. Portraits of generations of Ravensshire dukes watched silently from the walls. Finally, he stopped before a pair of grand oak doors. "This was your father's room, whenever he visited." Amelia stared at him. "My father came here?" Benjamin smiled sadly. "More times than you could ever imagine." She stepped inside. The room had been untouched for years. Books still rested on the shelves. A leather journal lay on the desk. Fresh flowers stood beside the window. Someone had cared for this room, even after all these years. She walked toward the fireplace. Above it hung a painting. 3 people stood, smiling together. A young duke, a beautiful woman, and her father. Amelia's heart pounded. They weren't strangers. They looked like family. Benjamin quietly spoke behind her. "Your father didn't simply know the Ravensshires. He helped save this family." Amelia slowly turned. Then why was everything kept secret? Benjamin's expression darkened. Because someone inside this castle wanted history to disappear. Outside, the winter wind howled through the ancient towers. Somewhere deep inside Ravensshire Castle, a locked door slowly creaked open by itself, as if the castle had been waiting for Amelia Hart to finally come home. The first rays of morning sunlight slipped through the towering windows of Ravensshire Castle. Snow covered the gardens outside like a white blanket, making the entire estate appear peaceful. But inside the castle, nothing felt peaceful. Servants hurried to the corridors in worried silence. Doctors entered and left the Duke's chamber. Everyone whispered the same question. Would His Grace remember anything this time? Amelia stood near the library window, watching snowflakes drift across the frozen courtyard. She still couldn't stop thinking about the previous evening. The unconscious Duke, the strange way he had whispered her name. She had never met Adrian Ravensshire. At least, she didn't think she had. Benjamin quietly approached. His Grace has awakened. Amelia turned immediately. Is he well? Benjamin sighed. Physically, yes. But his memory, he paused, is another matter. The Duke's chamber occupied the highest floor of the castle. The room was enormous. Dark oak furniture, a roaring fireplace, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. Portraits of Ravensshire ancestors watched silently from every wall. Adrian sat beside the window. His bandaged forehead reflected the morning light. He looked stronger than the night before. Yet, his gray eyes seemed strangely distant. Lost. Benjamin bowed. Your Grace. Adrian nodded. You wish to see Miss Hart. Amelia stepped forward. For several seconds, neither spoke. Adrian studied her face carefully, almost as though trying to remember a forgotten dream. Finally, he spoke. Have we met before? Amelia answered honestly. I don't believe so. His eyebrows slowly furrowed. Then why does your face feel familiar? Silence filled the room. Benjamin quietly explained. Your Grace suffered another memory episode after yesterday's fall. Adrian looked frustrated. I remember my childhood. I remember this castle. I remember my parents. But everything after my 25th birthday... He closed his eyes. It's like someone erased those years. Amelia listened quietly. Benjamin had mentioned an accident. Now she understood. The Duke hadn't forgotten only people. He had forgotten part of his own life. Adrian looked toward Amelia again. Tell me your name. Amelia Hart. The moment she spoke, something flashed across his face. Pain, a distant memory, a feeling he couldn't explain. He whispered almost to himself. Blue roses. What? Amelia asked softly. Adrian slowly shook his head. I don't know. The words simply appeared. Benjamin looked deeply unsettled. After breakfast, Benjamin showed Amelia the west wing of the castle. Most rooms were beautifully maintained, until they reached one long corridor. Every window was covered. Every door remained locked. Dust covered the floor. This part of the castle has been closed for years. Why? Benjamin hesitated. His Grace ordered it. When? After the accident. Amelia looked confused. If he doesn't remember, then why close it? Benjamin quietly answered, because some memories remain, even when names disappear. As they walked farther, Amelia noticed one door unlike the others. Its handle looked polished. Someone had used it recently. She reached toward it. Benjamin immediately stopped her. No, his voice sounded unusually firm. No one enters that room. Not even the Duke. Amelia slowly lowered her hand. What's inside? Benjamin looked at the locked door. I promise. To whom? He answered softly. To the late Duchess. That afternoon, Amelia wandered into the castle gardens. Despite winter, one small section remained filled with flowers. Blue roses. She stopped in surprise. Blue roses almost never existed naturally, yet dozens bloomed beneath a glass greenhouse. Someone cared for them every day. She gently touched one flower. Behind her, a familiar voice spoke. I planted those. She turned. Adrian stood several steps away. Without his heavy coat, he looked younger, less like a duke, more like an ordinary man. You remember planting them? He smiled sadly. No, I only know because Benjamin told me. He looked toward the flowers. They say these roses were important to someone. I wish I knew why. Amelia couldn't explain it, but her heart ached, as though the flowers were trying to tell a story. For the next hour, they walked through the snowy gardens together, not as duke and guest, simply as two strangers. Adrian asked simple questions. What books do you like? History? Poetry? Adventure? He laughed quietly. I've apparently forgotten which books I love. Amelia smiled. Then you'll get to discover them again. He looked at her. Perhaps it would be easier with a friend. The word surprised both of them. Friend. Neither corrected it. As evening approached, Benjamin handed Amelia an old leather notebook. This belonged to your father. My father left it here? Benjamin nodded. He asked me never to destroy it. Only you may read it. Amelia carefully opened the first page. Only one sentence had been written. If Adrian ever loses his memories, never tell him everything at once. The truth must return slowly, or it will destroy him. Amelia's hands began trembling. How? How could her father have predicted this? She quickly turned the page. Every remaining page had been torn out. Only the first message remained. That night, Adrian couldn't sleep. He wandered alone through the castle corridors. Almost without thinking, his feet carried him toward the locked west wing. He stopped before the forbidden door. His hand reached for the handle. The moment his fingers touched the cold brass, a violent headache struck. Suddenly, broken images flashed through his mind. A young woman laughing, a blue rose falling into the snow, someone shouting, a gunshot, blood on white marble. Then, darkness. Adrian stumbled backward, breathing heavily. The visions disappeared as quickly as they had come. Inside the locked room, something crashed loudly onto the floor. Adrian stared at the door. The room had been empty for years. So, who or what was inside? Far down the corridor, a shadow silently disappeared around the corner. Someone had been watching him. Someone who clearly did not want Adrian's memories to return. A heavy silence settled over Ravensshire Castle after the strange incident in the West Wing. No servant dared mention the loud crash. No one admitted hearing it. Yet everyone seemed unusually nervous. Amelia noticed something odd. Whenever anyone walked past a locked corridor, they lowered their voices, as though the walls themselves were listening. The next morning, Benjamin was already waiting outside the library. Dark circles rested beneath his tired eyes. It seems none of us slept well. Amelia nodded. I keep thinking about the notebook. Benjamin sighed. So do I? She looked directly at him. My father knew Adrian would lose his memory. Benjamin remained silent. How? The old butler slowly removed a small brass key from his pocket. There are answers, he hesitated, that I've guarded for nearly 20 years. He placed a key into Amelia's hand. Come with me. Instead of leading her upstairs, Benjamin walked deep beneath the castle, down narrow stone staircases, past old wine cellars, past forgotten storage rooms. Finally, they reached an old oak door hidden behind shelves of dusty barrels. Benjamin unlocked it. The hinges groaned loudly. A cold breath of air escaped from inside. This room belonged to the first Duke of Ravensshire. No one has entered since your father left. The room looked untouched by time. Ancient books, wooden cabinets, old maps, hundreds of rolled-up paintings leaned carefully against the walls. Sunlight slipped through one narrow window. Dust danced like tiny stars. Amelia slowly stepped inside. Everything felt personal, almost as though someone had expected her arrival. Benjamin walked toward a large painting covered by white cloth. His hands trembled slightly. I hoped this day would never come. He gently removed the cloth. Amelia gasped. The painting showed 3 smiling people standing beside a lake. One was the late Duke William Ravensshire. The second, her father. The third, a beautiful young woman with gentle blue eyes. Around her neck hung the exact same silver pendant Amelia wore every day. My mother... Benjamin nodded. Lady Eleanor Hart. Amelia stared in disbelief. My father told me Mother died before I could remember her. She did. But he never told me she had lived here. Benjamin's eyes filled with sorrow. Because this castle was once her home. Amelia slowly stepped closer. Something beneath the painting caught her attention. A small brass plaque. It read, Summer of 2001. The Ravensshire family. Family? She looked at Benjamin. My parents weren't servants. No, they weren't employees. They were family. The room suddenly felt much smaller. Every answer only created more questions. Meanwhile, Adrian sat alone inside his study. The same headache returned. Again, he saw flashes. Blue roses. Snow. Someone crying. A woman's voice whispering, Promise me you'll remember. He pressed both hands against his head. Who are you? No answer came. Only silence. At that moment, Lady Eleanor entered. She was Adrian's widowed aunt. Elegant. Calm. Always dressed in black. She helped raise Adrian after his parents died. You shouldn't overwork yourself. Adrian smiled faintly. I don't remember enough to overwork. She poured him tea. The doctor said memories return slowly. Don't force them. He looked toward the window. What if someone doesn't want me to remember? Lady Eleanor froze. Only for a second. Then she smiled. Why would anyone want that? I don't know. But every time I go near the West Wing, my head feels like it's splitting apart. She gently placed a hand on his shoulder. Stay away from that corridor. For now. Her words sounded caring. Yet something in her voice felt afraid. That afternoon, Benjamin unlocked another cabinet inside the hidden room. Several old journals rested inside. Most belonged to Duke William. One belonged to Amelia's father. Before Amelia could reach it, a folded photograph slipped onto the floor. She picked it up. It showed a younger Adrian, around 10 years old, standing beside a little girl. Both children were laughing while planting blue roses. The girl looked familiar, very familiar. Amelia's hands began trembling. She turned the photo over. Written on the back were only 5 words. Adrian and Amelia, forever friends. She couldn't breathe. No. Benjamin quietly nodded. You lived here. When your parents visited, you and Adrian were inseparable. Amelia looked shocked. But he doesn't remember. No, and neither did you. My father never told me. He wanted to protect you. From what? Benjamin lowered his eyes. From that night, before Amelia could ask another question, a loud knock echoed upstairs. Benjamin looked alarmed. No one knows this room exists. Someone knocked again, much harder this time. Benjamin quickly covered the painting. Hide. Amelia slipped behind a bookshelf. Benjamin calmly opened the door. Lord Victor Ashford stood outside, tall, well-dressed. His smile looked charming. His eyes did not. I've been looking everywhere for you, Benjamin. I needed inventory records. Benjamin answered calmly. They're upstairs. Victor glanced inside the room. His eyes briefly swept across every corner, almost as though searching for something or someone. Finally, he smiled again. My mistake. After he left, Benjamin quietly locked the door. His hands shook. He knows. Knows what? That someone has started asking questions. That evening, Amelia returned to the greenhouse. The blue roses swayed gently beneath the glass roof. She held the old photograph tightly. Footsteps approached. Adrian. He smiled softly. I thought I'd find you here. She quickly hid the photograph. You like these flowers? He nodded. They make me feel safe. He looked at one particular rose. Without thinking, he reached toward it. So strange. What is? I suddenly remembered. Amelia held her breath. Adrian gently whispered, You always insisted that blue roses should be planted in pairs. His own words startled him. He looked at Amelia in confusion. How do I know that? Tears filled Amelia's eyes. Because it was true. When they were children, they had planted those roses together. He had remembered, not her name, not her face, but one tiny piece of their shared past. Hope quietly returned. His memories were not gone forever. They were waiting, hidden somewhere deep inside him. Late that night, inside his private bedroom, Lord Victor Ashford unlocked a secret drawer. He removed an old leather diary. Its cover bore the raven's higher crest. He opened the final page. Only one sentence had been written. If Adrian ever remembers the truth, everything I built will fall. Victor slowly closed the diary. A cold smile appeared on his face. Then he whispered into the empty room. That must never happen. Outside, the castle bells rang midnight. Somewhere inside Ravenshire Castle, the past had begun waking up, and someone was willing to do anything to bury it forever. A fierce storm swept across Ravenshire Castle. Thunder rolled the mountains while rain battered the ancient stained-glass windows. Inside the castle, no one slept peacefully. Not Amelia, not Adrian, and certainly not Lord Victor Ashford. Something had changed. For the first time in years, the past had begun fighting its way back. The next morning, Benjamin knocked gently on Amelia's bedroom door. She opened it immediately. Neither of them looked rested. I've been thinking all night, Benjamin admitted. So have I. He lowered his voice. There is one place we've never searched. Amelia frowned. The West Wing. Benjamin nodded. The locked room. She looked surprised. You said no one enters it. I also said I made a promise. He looked toward the long corridor outside. But perhaps my promise has already lasted long enough. The castle remained unusually quiet. Lady Eleanor had traveled to the nearby village. Lord Victor had left to inspect estate farms. Benjamin believed they had only a few hours. He unlocked a heavy iron gate, leading toward the abandoned West Wing. The corridor felt frozen. Dust covered the marble floor. Spiderwebs stretched across old chandeliers. Every portrait seemed to watch them. Finally, they stopped before the mysterious oak door. Benjamin slowly inserted a large brass key. His hands trembled. The lock hadn't been opened in nearly 12 years. With a loud click, the door finally opened. A cold gust of air escaped from inside. Sunlight barely entered through curtains covered in dust. Furniture remained exactly where it had been left. Nothing had moved. Nothing had changed. It looked as though someone had simply walked away and never returned. Amelia stepped inside carefully. The room wasn't a bedroom. It was a private sitting room. A piano stood near the fireplace. Shelves overflowed with books. Pressed flowers rested between open pages. Everything looked strangely familiar. Then her eyes fell upon the wall. Hundreds of small sketches. Most showed the same two children. A little boy, a little girl, laughing, reading, playing beside blue roses. One sketch caught Amelia's attention. The children were slightly older, perhaps 12 years old. The boy had written beneath it in uneven handwriting, "Best friends forever." The names underneath made Amelia's heart stop. Adrian and Amelia. Benjamin quietly wiped away a tear. "I remember that summer. You two refused to be separated." Amelia couldn't take her eyes off the drawing. "I don't remember any of this. You were only 11 when your parents stopped visiting. You never returned." Suddenly, Benjamin noticed something unusual. One bookshelf seemed slightly farther from the wall. He gently pushed it. It didn't move. Amelia looked closer. "There are scratch marks on the floor." Benjamin nodded. "It slides." Together, they pushed. The bookshelf slowly shifted sideways. Behind it, a narrow stone staircase descended into darkness. Amelia whispered, "A secret passage." Benjamin picked up an old lantern. "I've served this castle for 40 years. I never knew this existed." The staircase twisted deep beneath the castle. Moisture dripped from the ceiling. The air smelled of old stone. After several minutes, they reached a hidden chamber. Unlike the dusty room above, this chamber had been used recently. The lantern on the table still contained fresh oil. A chair had been moved. Someone had been here, very recently. The chamber held dozens of wooden boxes. Benjamin opened the first. Inside, old estate documents, maps, letters. The second box contained photographs. The third, leather-bound journals. Amelia carefully opened one. It belonged to Duke William Ravenshire. The first page read, "Some truths must remain hidden until both children are old enough to understand them." Children, plural, Adrian and Amelia. She turned another page. There, folded between the diary pages, was a family photograph. Adrian's parents, Amelia's parents, young Adrian, young Amelia, everyone smiling together during Christmas. No servants, no employers, just family. Benjamin suddenly froze. "What is it?" He pointed toward the corner. A safe, built directly into the stone wall. Its iron door remained locked. Across the front, the Ravensshire crest had been engraved. Below it, 3 words, "Only blood opens." Amelia frowned. "What does that mean?" Benjamin slowly answered, "The lock doesn't use a key. It was designed for members of the Ravensshire family." Before either of them could investigate further, footsteps echoed above. Heavy footsteps. More than one person. Benjamin quickly extinguished the lantern. Both stood perfectly still. Voices drifted through the ceiling. "Lord Victor." And another man. Victor's voice echoed faintly. "Search every room. If Amelia has found anything, bring it to me." Another voice replied. "And if she refuses?" Victor answered coldly. "Then make sure she leaves Ravensshire Castle today." Amelia's heartbeat pounded in her ears. Benjamin whispered, "They're looking for us." They quietly climbed back toward the hidden staircase. But just before reaching the top, Amelia noticed something lying on one of the steps. A small silver locket, covered in dust. She picked it up. Inside were 2 tiny photographs. One showed her mother. The other, a much younger Adrian's father. Hidden beneath the pictures was a folded piece of paper. She opened it. Only one sentence appeared. "The real heir is not the one everyone believes." Amelia stared at the message. "What does this mean?" Benjamin looked equally shocked. "I don't know." For the first time, the old butler looked genuinely frightened. Meanwhile, Adrian wandered alone through the castle gardens. His headaches had grown worse. He reached the greenhouse. The blue roses swayed gently in the afternoon breeze. Without warning, another memory struck. A little girl laughing, running through the greenhouse, holding a silver locket. She smiled at him. "Promise me, if we ever get separated, you'll always find me again." Adrian staggered backward, his vision blurred. The girl's face remained hidden by sunlight, but her voice sounded exactly like Amelia's. That evening, Amelia hurried toward the library carrying the locket. She wanted Adrian to see it. Perhaps it would help him remember. As she reached the doorway, she stopped. Inside, Lord Victor stood beside Adrian. Victor placed several legal documents onto the desk. "I've completed the investigation." Adrian looked confused. "What investigation?" Victor answered calmly. "Miss Amelia Hart. I've discovered she has been stealing confidential Ravenshire records." Amelia's eyes widened. "What?" Victor continued without turning around. "I warned you she couldn't be trusted. I have witnesses." The room fell silent. Adrian slowly looked toward the doorway. Their eyes met. For the first time, Amelia saw doubt in his face. Not because he believed Victor, but because he no longer knew whom to trust. Outside, lightning illuminated Ravenshire Castle. The storm had finally arrived, and with it, the first real battle for the truth had begun. The library fell into complete silence. The only sound was a crackling fire burning inside the marble fireplace. Amelia stood frozen at the doorway. Lord Victor calmly folded his hands behind his back. Adrian looked from Victor to Amelia. His gray eyes were filled with confusion rather than anger. Victor spoke first. "Your Grace, this morning one of the servants discovered confidential estate documents missing from the West Archive." He placed several papers onto the desk. They were later found inside Miss Hart's room. Amelia's face turned pale. "That's impossible." Victor looked almost sympathetic. "I truly hoped it wasn't true. But the evidence speaks for itself." Adrian slowly stood. His voice remained calm. "Amelia, did you take these documents?" She answered immediately. "No, I've never even seen them." Victor interrupted. "Unfortunately, you were also seen entering the abandoned West Wing." Benjamin stepped forward. "I was with Miss Hart." Victor smiled. "So you admit it." Benjamin realized too late that he had walked into Victor's trap. Adrian looked toward Benjamin. "You entered the West Wing?" Benjamin bowed his head. "Yes, Your Grace. You specifically ordered that no one enter those rooms." Benjamin remained silent. Victor quietly added, "They disobeyed your direct orders." And then confidential papers disappeared. Amelia stepped forward. "We entered because we were searching for answers." Victor laughed softly. "Answers? Or hidden valuables?" Her voice grew firm. "We found a secret chamber." Victor's smile vanished. For only a fraction of a second, fear crossed his face. Then it disappeared. "A convenient story. There is no secret chamber." Benjamin answered calmly. "There is." Victor turned sharply toward him. "You old fool." Benjamin met his eyes without fear. "I've served this family longer than you've been alive. I know what I saw." Adrian walked toward the window. His headache slowly returned. Pieces of memory flashed before him. The hidden staircase. A frightened little girl. Someone locking a heavy wooden door. Then, darkness. He pressed his fingers against his temple. "Enough." The pain became unbearable. The castle physician entered quickly. "Your Grace, you must rest." Victor immediately supported the idea. "Exactly. Stress will only make your condition worse." He turned toward Amelia. "And perhaps Miss Hart should return to the village until this misunderstanding is resolved." Amelia understood what he was doing. He wanted her gone. Benjamin spoke firmly. "She has done nothing wrong." Victor smiled. "Then surely she won't mind if we search her room again." Several servants followed Victor upstairs. Amelia remained silent. She knew someone had planted those papers. She simply couldn't prove it. A few minutes later, Victor returned carrying a small wooden box. "I found this beneath Miss Hart's bed." He placed it on Adrian's desk. Benjamin frowned. "I've never seen that box." Neither had Amelia. Victor opened it. Inside lay old estate maps, gold coins, and a Ravenshire family seal. Gasps echoed through the library. Victor looked almost disappointed. "I wish I were wrong." Adrian stared at the box, then at Amelia. His voice sounded heavy. I don't believe you stole these. Victor frowned. But Adrian continued. I also can't explain how they appeared in your room. Amelia quietly answered. Neither can I. For a long moment, no one spoke. Finally, Adrian made his decision. Until I know the truth, I cannot allow you to remain inside the castle. Benjamin looked shocked. Your Grace. Adrian raised his hand. This is not punishment. It is protection. If someone is trying to frame Miss Hart, then she is no longer safe here. Victor hid his satisfaction. Exactly what he wanted. That evening, rain poured across the mountains. A small carriage waited outside the front entrance. Unlike her first arrival, no servants gathered to say goodbye. Only Benjamin stood beside her luggage. His eyes were filled with regret. I failed your father. Amelia gently shook her head. No, someone wanted this to happen. Benjamin quietly handed her a folded piece of paper. I found this inside the secret chamber. I couldn't read it before Victor arrived. Amelia carefully placed it inside her coat. Don't open it until you're far from the castle. As the carriage prepared to leave, Adrian appeared on the front steps. He had no umbrella. Rain soaked his black coat. For several moments, neither of them spoke. Finally, he walked toward the carriage. I'm sorry. Amelia looked into his eyes. You still don't remember me. He slowly shook his head. No, but every part of me is screaming that letting you leave is the biggest mistake of my life. Her eyes filled with tears. She wanted to tell him everything about their childhood, the blue roses, the photograph, the hidden room. But then she remembered her father's notebook. Never tell him everything at once. She simply smiled. You'll remember. He whispered, I hope you're right. The carriage slowly disappeared into the rain. Adrian watched until it vanished beyond the castle gates. Something inside him felt as though it had been torn away. Late that night, Amelia stopped at a small roadside in nearly 20 miles from Ravenshire. Only then did she unfold Benjamin's note. Inside was another folded page. Old, yellow with age, written in Duke William's handwriting. Benjamin, if anything happens to me, never allow Victor Ashford to open the Ravenshire blood vault. Only Adrian and one other person have the right to unlock it. Amelia's heartbeat quickened. One other person? Who? She turned the page over. There was only one line left, almost erased by time. The second rightful heir is... The remainder had been torn away. Back at Ravensshire Castle, Victor entered the hidden chamber alone. He lit a lantern, walked directly toward the iron safe. He smiled coldly. So, you finally started searching. He placed his hand against the ancient door. I've waited 12 years. Very soon, everything inside this vault will belong to me. Just then, a deep metallic sound echoed from within the safe. Click. Victor's smile disappeared. The vault had unlocked itself, and somewhere far away, as Amelia held the torn letter in trembling hands, Adrian suddenly awoke from a terrifying dream. He sat upright, breathing heavily. One sentence echoed clearly inside his mind. Not blurred, not broken, perfectly clear. Run, Adrian. Save Amelia. For the first time since his accident, he remembered her name completely. Amelia, and he knew one thing with absolute certainty. She was in terrible danger. The storm finally passed, but the darkness inside Ravensshire Castle only grew deeper. Adrian sat alone in his bedroom, staring into the dying fire. He had not slept, not after the dream. The voice still echoed inside his mind. Run, Adrian. Save Amelia. It wasn't imagination. It wasn't another broken memory. It felt real. As dawn broke over the mountains, Benjamin entered quietly. He stopped in surprise. The Duke was already dressed for travel. A long black riding coat hung over his shoulders. His sword rested at his side. Benjamin frowned. Your Grace, where are you going? Adrian answered without hesitation. I'm bringing Amelia back. Benjamin stared. You remember her? Adrian closed his eyes. Not everything, but I remember enough. Fragments returned one after another. A little girl laughing beside blue roses. 2 children hiding inside the secret room, a promise made beneath the old oak tree, and then one terrible night. A gunshot, someone shouting, a little girl crying. Everything after that vanished into darkness. Benjamin's eyes filled with hope. The memories are returning. Adrian nodded, and someone has spent years making sure they never did. He looked directly at Benjamin. Tell me everything. Benjamin remained silent. For 12 years I obeyed your father's final order. But now, he slowly bowed. You deserve the truth. They walked into the hidden chamber beneath the west wing. Benjamin lit 2 lanterns. Their light danced across the stone walls. He pointed toward an old wooden chest. This belonged to your father. Adrian opened it carefully. Inside rested dozens of journals. At the very bottom lay a sealed envelope. Across the front, his father's handwriting. For Adrian, his hands trembled as he broke the seal. My son, if you are reading this, then fate has finally brought you back to the truth. Never hate yourself for forgetting. You forgot because someone wanted you to survive. There was an attack that night. Someone inside this family betrayed us. Protect Amelia. She carries the final piece of our secret. Trust Benjamin. Trust your own heart. Do not trust Victor Ashford. Adrian slowly lowered the letter. His breathing became uneven. Father knew. Benjamin nodded. He knew Victor wasn't loyal. Then why wasn't he stopped? Benjamin looked toward the old ceiling. Because there wasn't enough proof. At that exact moment, a servant rushed downstairs. Your Grace. Adrian turned. What is it? The blood vault. It's open. Benjamin's face turned white. Impossible. No one can open it. The servant swallowed nervously. The door is standing open. All 3 hurried through the secret passage. When they reached the ancient vault, the enormous iron door stood wide open. Dust covered the floor, yet fresh footprints led inside. Someone had entered only minutes earlier. The vault wasn't filled with gold or jewels. Instead, shelves lined every wall. Hundreds of leather journals, family records, birth certificates, marriage contracts, private correspondence dating back 200 years. Benjamin whispered, This is the true history of Ravenshire. Adrian walked farther inside. Near the center stood a single marble pedestal. Upon it rested an empty velvet box. Benjamin froze. No. Adrian looked at him. What was inside? Benjamin answered quietly. The Ravenshire legacy seal. The one object proving who the rightful guardian of this estate truly is. Adrian looked at the empty box. It was stolen. Benjamin nodded. Very recently. Meanwhile, nearly 50 miles away, Amelia arrived in the small town of Ashbourne. She rented a room above an old bakery. The torn letter still rested inside her pocket. She couldn't stop reading it. The second rightful heir is... Every time she reached the torn edge, frustration filled her heart. One missing sentence, one missing name, and everything would finally make sense. A gentle knock came at her door. The innkeeper handed her a small package. It arrived for you this morning. There was no return address. Amelia frowned. Inside lay only one object, a silver compass, exactly like the one her father had carried every day. Hidden beneath it, a folded note. They know where you are. Leave before sunset. Do not trust strangers. Someone wearing a Ravenshire crest is coming. Her heart raced. Who had sent it? Benjamin? Impossible. He didn't know where she was staying. Outside, across the street, a man wearing a dark cloak quietly watched the inn. His gloved hand rested inside his coat, wrapped around the stolen Ravenshire legacy seal. He smiled, then disappeared into the crowd. Back at Ravenshire Castle, Adrian studied every document inside the blood vault. Hours passed. Nothing explained why Amelia's family mattered so much. Then, Benjamin discovered one final journal hidden beneath the marble pedestal. It belonged to Adrian's mother, the Duchess Catherine Ravenshire. Adrian opened it. The final page had only one paragraph. He read it aloud. If our children are ever separated, tell Adrian to follow the blue rose. Only Amelia knows where it blooms. Adrian looked up sharply. The blue rose. Benjamin whispered. The greenhouse. Suddenly, everything connected. The flowers. The childhood memories. The promise. Adrian didn't wait another second. He grabbed his riding coat. I'm leaving now. Benjamin hurried after him. Where? Adrian mounted his black horse. I'm bringing Amelia home. What if Victor stops you? Adrian's gray eyes hardened for the first time. He already tried. This time, he'll answer for everything. With one sharp pull of the reins, his horse thundered through the castle gates. Snow exploded beneath its hooves. High above the mountains, a flock of ravens circled the ancient castle, watching, waiting, because somewhere ahead, Adrian and Amelia were about to uncover a truth far greater than either of them had imagined, a truth that would decide not only who owned Ravenshire, but who truly belonged to its family. The icy wind howled across the mountains as Duke Adrian Ravenshire rode through the night. He hadn't stopped for food. He hadn't stopped for rest. Only one thought filled his mind. Find Amelia. Every mile brought another memory back. He remembered the old greenhouse. He remembered the hidden room. And finally, he remembered the night everything had changed. 12 years earlier, rain lashed against Ravensshire Castle. Young Adrian, only 13 years old, stood inside the greenhouse with 11-year-old Amelia. They were planting 2 blue rose bushes. Amelia smiled. When these bloom, we'll know we'll always be friends. Adrian laughed. They'll bloom every year. Before Amelia could answer, a loud gunshot echoed across the estate. Both children jumped. Benjamin ran toward them. Come quickly. There isn't much time. He grabbed both children by the hands. But before they reached the castle, a masked man blocked their path. Benjamin pushed Adrian and Amelia behind him. Run. The man fired another shot. Benjamin fell to one knee. Adrian tried to help him. Instead, Benjamin shouted with all his strength, Take Amelia. Don't look back. Everything after that became darkness. That was a final memory before Adrian's mind went blank. Present day. Adrian suddenly pulled his horse to a stop. His breathing became heavy. He remembered everything now. Not every single detail, but enough. Benjamin had protected them. Someone had attacked the family. And Victor had been standing beside the masked man. Far away in Ashbourne, Amelia prepared to leave the inn before sunset. The mysterious warning note still lay on the table. She packed quickly. Just as she reached the door, someone knocked. 3 slow knocks. Exactly like the mysterious letter that had first brought her to Ravensshire. She carefully opened the door. An elderly priest stood outside. I have something for Miss Amelia Hart. I am Amelia. The priest handed her a worn leather tube. A gentleman asked me to deliver this if anyone wearing the Ravensshire crest came looking for you. When? This morning. Before Amelia could ask another question, the priest quietly walked away. Inside the leather tube lay an old parchment. It wasn't a letter. It was a family tree. The Ravensshire family. She carefully followed each name. Then suddenly, her eyes widened. One branch had been hidden beneath another sheet of paper. She gently lifted it. There, written in faded ink, were the names of her parents. Not as servants, not as guests, but as guardians of Ravensshire. Beneath them was another sentence. The guardian family shall protect the Ravensshire legacy for every generation. Amelia whispered, My father wasn't hiding from Ravensshire. He was protecting it. Just then, hooves thundered outside. Amelia rushed to the window. 4 riders wearing black cloaks surrounded the inn. Each carried the Ravensshire crest. At first she felt relieved, until she noticed something strange. The crest was upside down. Benjamin had once told her only traitors wore it that way. One rider shouted, Miss Hart, His Grace requests your immediate return. Amelia stepped away from the window. They're lying. She quietly climbed out to the back window. At the same time, Adrian reached Ashbourne. He rode straight toward the inn. The owner ran outside. Your Grace, where's Miss Hart? She left only moments ago. for men came looking for her. Adrian's face turned pale. What do they look like? The innkeeper described them. Adrian immediately recognized the symbol. Victor. He turned his horse. They're not my men. Deep inside Blackwood Forest, Amelia hurried through the snow-covered trees. Night was falling. She clutched the family tree tightly beneath her coat. Behind her, horse hooves echoed. Closer, closer. She began running. Branches whipped against her face. Then a rider appeared ahead. Another behind. She was trapped. The leader removed his hood. It wasn't Victor. It was a scar-faced man she'd never seen before. Hand over the document. Amelia stood her ground. I don't know what you're talking about. The man smiled coldly. You will. He slowly drew his sword. Suddenly, another horse burst through the trees. Adrian, without slowing down, he knocked the swordsman off his horse. Steel clashed in the frozen forest. The remaining riders attacked together. Adrian fought fiercely. Years of military training returned as naturally as breathing. Within moments, 2 attackers fled. One lay unconscious. The leader escaped into the darkness. Adrian immediately ran toward Amelia. Are you hurt? She shook her head. No. For several seconds, neither spoke. Snow drifted silently around them. Finally, Adrian smiled. Not the uncertain smile she'd seen before, but the smile she remembered from childhood. I remembered. Amelia's eyes filled with tears. Everything. He nodded slowly. I remember the greenhouse, the blue roses, our promise. And he gently reached into his coat. From an inside pocket, he removed a tiny wooden whistle. Amelia gasped, You still have it. You gave it to me when we were children. You said if either of us was ever lost, the other would always find the sound. Tears rolled down Amelia's cheeks. For the first time in 12 years, the boy she'd once known was standing before her again. Adrian looked at the parchment in her hands. What is it? She showed him the hidden family tree. His expression changed instantly. My father never told me this. He couldn't. Amelia answered softly. He died before he had the chance. Adrian carefully studied the final line. Then Benjamin's words suddenly made sense. The Guardian family. He looked at Amelia. Your family wasn't protecting our wealth. They were protecting something much more important. What? Adrian slowly folded the parchment. I don't know yet, but Victor clearly does. Back at Ravensshire Castle, Lord Victor entered the blood vault alone. The stolen legacy seal rested in his hand. He walked toward a second iron door hidden behind the shelves. He pressed the seal against a circular engraving. Nothing happened. His smile disappeared. No! It should open. He tried again. Still nothing. Suddenly, an old inscription carved above the doorway caught his attention. Only when the Duke and the Guardian stand together shall the final door open. Victor's face twisted with rage. So that's why I need both of them alive. He slowly smiled. But not forever. High above the castle, lightning illuminated the ancient towers once again. The final secret of Ravensshire was waiting behind the second door. And now, Adrian and Amelia were finally together. The last battle was about to begin. The first light of dawn spread across the snow-covered mountains. For the first time in 12 years, Adrian Ravensshire and Amelia Hart stood side by side again, not as 2 strangers, but as the 2 children who had once promised never to leave each other. The journey back to Ravensshire Castle began in silence. Neither needed words. They both knew the truth waiting inside the castle would change everything. As Adrian's carriage rolled to the castle gates, every servant gathered in the courtyard. Benjamin stepped forward. The moment he saw Adrian and Amelia together, relief filled his eyes. You remembered. Adrian smiled. I remember enough. Benjamin looked toward Amelia. And now, the castle can finally heal. Before anyone could say another word, a familiar voice echoed from the grand staircase. So, the lost children have returned. Lord Victor Ashford slowly descended the stairs. His elegant smile remained, but the warmth had disappeared from his eyes. Behind him stood 6 armed guards. Adrian stepped forward. "It's over, Victor." Victor laughed quietly. "You still don't understand." He removed the stolen Ravenshire legacy seal from his pocket. "I already possess the only thing that matters." Benjamin shook his head. "No, you possess only half." Victor frowned. "What do you mean?" Benjamin looked toward Adrian and Amelia. The seal was never meant to work alone. Benjamin led everyone into the hidden blood vault beneath the castle. The massive stone chamber felt colder than ever. At the far end, the second iron door stood silently. Victor confidently walked toward it. He pressed a legacy seal against the circular engraving. Nothing happened. He pushed harder. Still nothing. His confidence slowly faded. Benjamin quietly spoke. "Read the inscription." Victor looked upward. For the first time, he read every word. "Only when the Duke and the Guardian stand together shall Ravenshire reveal its final truth." Victor slowly turned toward Amelia. Realization filled his face. "No." Benjamin nodded. "Your father wasn't hiding Amelia. He was protecting the Guardian." Benjamin motioned for Adrian. "Place your hand here." Adrian rested his hand upon the carved raven. Benjamin then looked toward Amelia. "You wear your mother's silver pendant." She nodded. "Place it into the center." Her hands trembled. She removed the pendant. It fit perfectly inside the ancient lock. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then, a deep rumble echoed beneath the castle. Ancient gears turned. Dust fell from the ceiling. Slowly, the enormous iron door opened. No treasure waited inside. No gold. No jewels. Instead, a beautifully preserved chamber stood before them, shelves filled with books, letters, maps, portraits. At the center stood a marble pedestal. Upon it rested one final document. Adrian carefully unfolded it. The title read, "The Ravenshire Covenant." He began reading aloud, "To every future Duke. The Guardian family shall never rule Ravenshire, nor shall the Duke rule alone. Together they shall protect this estate, its people, and its honor. Power without wisdom becomes tyranny. Wisdom without courage becomes silence. Only together can Ravenshire survive." Amelia looked toward Benjamin. "So, our family never inherited the castle." Benjamin smiled. "No, you inherited its trust." Victor refused to accept it. "No, this estate belongs to me." He suddenly drew a hidden pistol. The guards panicked. Benjamin stepped in front of Amelia. Victor aimed directly at Adrian. "You've stolen everything from me." Before he could pull the trigger, a loud voice thundered through the chamber. "Drop the weapon." Castle guards surrounded the vault. Lady Eleanor stood beside them. Victor stared in disbelief. "You." Lady Eleanor looked at him with disappointment. "I knew something was wrong years ago, but I never had proof." She held up a leather journal. "I found your confession hidden inside your London estate." Victor's face turned pale. Inside the journal, every crime had been recorded. The forged documents, the false accusations, the theft of the legacy seal, the attack 12 years earlier. Everything. Victor slowly lowered the pistol. His shoulders collapsed. The game was finally over. The guards placed him under arrest. As he was led away, he looked back one final time. "I spent my entire life chasing power, and in the end, I never understood what Ravenshire truly was." Benjamin quietly answered, "No, you never understood family." Victor disappeared into the darkness. No one ever saw him again. Several weeks later, spring finally arrived. Snow melted across the mountains. The blue roses bloomed once again inside the greenhouse. Adrian stood beside them. Amelia walked quietly toward him. He smiled. "They survived." "So, did we?" She laughed softly. "You finally remember everything?" He nodded. "I even remember our first promise." He reached into his pocket. The tiny wooden whistle, still perfectly preserved. "You said, if either of us was ever lost, the other would always come back." I almost failed. Amelia gently took his hand. "But you didn't." As the evening sun painted the gardens golden, Adrian knelt beside the very blue roses they had planted as children. From a small velvet box, he removed a simple sapphire ring, not a royal crown jewel, not an extravagant diamond, a blue sapphire, the same color as the roses that had always connected them. He looked into Amelia's eyes. When I forgot my past, you never stopped believing I'd remember. When everyone doubted you, you never stopped searching for the truth. You didn't save Ravenshire because of duty. You saved it because you love this family. He smiled warmly. This castle has had many duchesses, but only one guardian, and only one woman I have ever loved. He took a deep breath. Amelia Hart, will you marry me? Tears shimmered in her eyes. She smiled exactly as she had when they were children. Yes, always. Adrian placed a sapphire ring on her finger. Behind them, Benjamin quietly wiped away a tear. Lady Eleanor smiled proudly. The castle bells rang across the valley, not to announce victory, but to celebrate a family finally made whole again. 1 year later, Ravensshire Castle had become known throughout the kingdom not for its wealth, but for its generosity. Adrian ruled with kindness instead of fear. Amelia established the Ravensshire Library and Academy, ensuring that every child in the surrounding villages could learn regardless of their family's wealth. The Blue Rose Garden remained the heart of the state. Every spring, children from the village gathered there to plant new flowers. Benjamin finally retired after 45 years of faithful service, though he still visited every afternoon for tea with Adrian and Amelia. Above the entrance to the restored library, a new inscription had been carved into white stone. A family's greatest treasure is not its inheritance, but the people who protect one another. And beneath the oldest blue rose bush, 2 names remain carved into the weathered wooden bench, exactly as they had been years before. Adrian and Amelia, forever friends, forever home. Thank you for listening to the story all the way to the end. Please tell us which city you're watching from and what the story made you feel. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss new stories.